1 second. Right, I believe we have some footage that has been taken on a mobile phone. Let's have a look at it.
Look.
A drone recorded a moment that investigators still struggle to explain. The footage lasts only 11 seconds, yet within that brief recording, a section of solid stone appears to move inside the cliffs of the Giant's Causeway in Ireland. A large slab of basalt slides outward from the rock face, pauses as if a hidden passage has opened, and then closes again. When the stone returns to its original position, the surface looks perfectly seamless. There is no crack, no visible joint, and no indication that anything had shifted at all. The drone, however, captured every frame. Investigators later carried out sonar scans on that part of the cliff. The results changed the situation immediately. The scans suggested the existence of a hollow chamber concealed behind the basalt wall. Inside that chamber, standing upright in complete darkness, were several tall forms encased in volcanic rock estimated to be about 60 million years old. According to the readings, the shapes had been in position before the lava hardened around them. They had not collapsed or fallen. They appeared to have been standing when the molten rock cooled, and the scans indicated that they are still standing today. Authorities have not released the sonar images to the public. Access to the area has been restricted, and monitoring sensors installed in the rock continue to transmit unusual readings. The instruments are detecting movement behind the stone. Whatever lies inside that chamber appears to be shifting, and the signals have been growing stronger. The day the rock moved. The Giant's Causeway lies along the northern coast of County Antrim in Northern Ireland. The landscape consists of around 40,000 interlocking basalt columns rising from the shoreline. These pillars formed during the Paleogene period, when massive volcanic eruptions spread molten lava across the region. As the lava cooled roughly 50 to 60 million years ago, it contracted and fractured into the hexagonal columns that define the site today. Irish folklore tells a different story. According to legend, a giant named Finn McCool constructed the causeway stone by stone so he could cross the sea and confront a rival in Scotland. Visitors often hear both the geological explanation and the mythological one, yet neither account explains what occurred on the afternoon when the drone captured the moving stone. The person operating the drone was not searching for anything unusual. He was a tourist flying a camera drone to capture aerial footage of the basalt columns for social media. The drone lifted into the air, moved along the cliff face, and recorded waves striking the rocks below. Visitors walked across the formations wearing bright jackets while the geometric pillars stretched toward the sea. At first, the footage showed nothing unexpected. Then, the rock moved. Along the eastern side of the formation, near a cluster of columns that rose slightly higher than the surrounding stone, a portion of basalt began to shift. The rock did not crack or crumble as might happen through erosion or temperature stress. Instead, it slid outward in a smooth and controlled motion, resembling a door opening on a hinge. The movement was steady and precise. No sound accompanied it. Park Ranger Thomas Brennan happened to be standing about 40 meters from the cliff when the motion occurred. He reached for his radio to report what he was seeing, but his hands were shaking so much that he dropped the device twice before managing to transmit a message. When he finally spoke to dispatch, his voice reportedly faltered as he described what he had witnessed. He explained that the stone had opened outward smoothly and that the cliff seemed almost to release a breath as it moved. 3 additional witnesses on the ground reported observing the same event. The stone slab remained open for approximately 11 seconds before sliding back into the cliff face and sealing itself in place. Several witnesses also described hearing a sound shortly before the rock moved. According to their accounts, a faint rhythmic pulse seemed to come from deep within the cliff. The sound was low and steady, resembling slow breathing. When investigators later reviewed the drone footage frame by frame, they confirmed that the recording had not been edited or altered. All timestamps were intact, and there were no digital artifacts. Yet after the stone closed, the basalt surface showed no sign that the rock had ever separated. There was no seam, fracture, or line marking the edge of the slab. Something inside the cliff had opened. Something had closed it again. and the rock surface concealed every trace of the movement except for the evidence captured by the drone. What they found behind the door. Investigators did more than review the video. They brought specialized instruments to the location. Ground-penetrating sonar was deployed along the section of cliff where the motion had occurred. The research team expected the scans to reveal a shallow cavity, perhaps a natural void formed by trapped gases during the volcanic eruptions that created the basalt millions of years earlier. That expectation proved incorrect. Dr. Margaret Sullivan, a geologist from Queen's University Belfast, was the first to analyze the sonar results. When the initial scan appeared on her laptop screen, she leaned forward and studied it silently for nearly an hour. Her assistant placed a cup of coffee beside her, but she did not touch it as she continued examining the data. When her colleague Dr. Ronan Gallagher asked what she was seeing, she raised a hand and asked him to wait while she studied the display further. The sonar indicated the presence of a sealed chamber behind the basalt wall. Even that discovery would have significantly changed the geological understanding of the formation. However, the chamber was not empty. Inside the hollow space, the scans detected several tall shapes standing upright. The forms appeared arranged in a line with even spacing between them. Their outlines suggested a humanoid structure, shoulders, torsos, and what looked like heads. Yet the figures appeared to exceed 8 feet in height, far taller than typical human proportions. Dr. Gallagher leaned closer to view the screen, but stepped back moments later. Dr. Sullivan repeated the scan several times to confirm the result. She recalibrated the equipment and replaced components to eliminate the possibility of instrument error. Each pass produced the same image. The figures remained in identical positions within the chamber. Their placement suggested a difficult conclusion. Basalt does not normally form around objects that remain upright unless those objects were already standing when the molten rock solidified. When Dr. Sullivan finally spoke her interpretation aloud, she did so quietly. According to the data, the figures appeared to have been standing in place when volcanic material surrounded them. They had not fallen or attempted to escape. Instead, they remained upright as the lava cooled and hardened around them approximately 60 million years ago. The implication was unsettling. Something appeared to have stood in formation while molten rock sealed it inside the earth, arranged like figures waiting in position. Later that evening, as the sonar team packed their equipment, the lead technician, Declan Foley, approached his supervisor and requested reassignment. Foley had spent 14 years working in subsurface imaging. He did not file a complaint or give a detailed explanation. He simply removed his headset and stated that he would not return to that section of the cliff. When asked why, he explained that the instruments had detected a secondary signal beneath the sonar returns. The signal appeared as a faint vibration moving through the rock in a slow repeating cycle. Foley said the pattern reminded him of something biological. To him, the rhythm resembled breathing. He also said he felt as though whatever was producing that signal was aware that the equipment was present. The pattern. Ireland is not the only location where stone formations appear to move or reseal themselves. At the ancient necropolis of Myra in southern Turkey, hundreds of Lycian tombs carved into sheer cliff faces more than 2,000 years ago display unusual marks near their entrances. Some of the tomb doors appear to have been sealed from the inside. Researchers have documented scratch marks and grooves carved into the rock surface, suggesting that hands may have pressed against the stone from within. One structure known as the Lion Tomb contains 11 life-sized stone figures. Within these sculptures, investigators have found traces of organic material embedded inside the stone, material that would only be present if biological matter existed at the time the figures were carved. Researchers have also identified scorch marks within sealed chambers that had remained closed for centuries. These burn patterns suggest that fire occurred inside spaces where oxygen should not have been available. Unusual reports have also emerged from Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, the longest known cave system on Earth, stretching more than 420 miles. Explorers have documented passages that appeared open during one expedition but were found sealed during later visits. Deep within the cave network, archaeologists have discovered ancient mummified remains thousands of years old. Some of the bodies appear positioned as if the individuals deliberately knelt or settled in place before dying in the darkness. Expedition teams have also reported subtle changes in stone formations between visits and recorded faint whisper, like sounds in chambers that surveys confirmed were empty. Audio specialists analyzing the recordings have been unable to match the sounds to any known language. In Ireland, a stone doorway appears to open and close. In Turkey, tombs show evidence of sealing from within. In Kentucky, cave passages seem to shift over time. Taken together, these incidents form a pattern that researchers have yet to fully explain. The breathing gets louder. After the sonar results were filed, authorities responded quickly and quietly. Public access to the eastern portion of the Giant's Causeway formation was restricted. There was no press conference or public statement. Instead, a rope barrier appeared along the path near the cliff, accompanied by a general explanation referring to potential geological instability. The monitoring sensors embedded in the rock face during the investigation, however, remained in place. They continue to transmit data. Dr. Aine Maguire, an environmental monitoring specialist working with the Northern Ireland Department for Infrastructure, was assigned to review the sensor readings 3 months after the initial event. She expected routine geological signals, thermal expansion, tidal pressure, and other natural vibrations associated with an ancient volcanic formation. The data she examined did not match those expectations. The sensors were detecting a repeating vibration pattern coming from behind the basalt wall. The signal occurred at a low frequency and repeated at consistent intervals. It matched the rhythmic pulse that technician Declan Foley had reported during the sonar survey. But there was a difference. The signal had grown stronger. Dr. Maguire compiled 6 months of continuous data and plotted the readings along a timeline. The pattern had not disappeared, it had accelerated. Over that 6-month period, the interval between pulses had shortened by nearly 12%. Whatever was producing the vibration appeared to be becoming more active. During the monitoring period, the vibration intensity spiked sharply on 3 separate occasions. Each spike occurred at a moment when people were physically present near the restricted area. The first spike occurred when 2 maintenance workers approached to inspect the rope barrier. The second happened during a nighttime equipment check. The third occurred when a group of tourists accidentally wandered beyond the boundary before being turned back by staff. Dr. Maguire spent 2 days studying the correlations before submitting her report. In a private conversation with a colleague, she reportedly said the vibration pattern did not behave like normal geological activity. It did not resemble pressure changes within the rock or tidal forces from the nearby sea. Instead, the pattern appeared to react to human proximity. Her colleague later recalled that Maguire used a word he had never heard her apply during 15 years of working together. She described the signal as a response. Consider what that suggests. A rhythmic vibration sealed within rock formed 60 million years ago that intensifies when people approach. A pattern that has gradually accelerated over 6 months. A stone doorway that opened once on camera and may have shifted at other times when no one was watching. Local legend claims that the giant Finn McCool sleeps beneath the Giant's Causeway, waiting for the day Ireland might call upon him again. For centuries, the story has been treated as folklore shared with visitors exploring the unusual hexagonal columns. But residents who live near the cliffs sometimes speak about the legend differently. Those who walk along the shore before dawn, before the arrival of tour buses, say they occasionally hear a steady rhythm rising from the rocks on quiet nights when the wind drops and the sea grows calm. They say the sound always comes from the same section of the cliff, behind the stone that moved. The sensors remain active. The data continues to stream. The vibration pattern has not stopped, and the time between pulses continues to shorten. 3 weeks ago, a fisherman anchored near the base of the eastern cliff reported hearing what he described as slow, heavy breathing coming from the rock above the waterline. According to his account, the sound felt close and deliberate. He lifted anchor and left the area and has not returned. Researchers gathered the footage, followed the investigation, and documented both the sonar findings and the continuing sensor readings. What lies beneath the Giant's Causeway remains uncertain, but the signals from within the rock have not gone silent.